Okay, welcome back to the second part of section 6.2, the 6 trig functions of theta. Okay, so we're going to take a look at how to find the secant of pi over 4. Remember that the secant is the reciprocal, the cosecant is the reciprocal of the sine. So what I first want to do is find the sine of pi over 4. So if we go to our unit circle, we find pi over 4. The sine is the y value, so that's root 2 over 2. So to get the cosecant, I simply have to reciprocate that. So it's 2 over root 2. And then you have to rationalize that by multiplying top and bottom by root 2. So the answer is root 2. Okay, so let's look at the next one. I want to find the secant of pi over 4, 11 pi over 4. So the first thing I have to do is find the cosine of 11 pi over 4. Now, 11 pi over 4 is not on our unit circle, but we have to find out what's coterminal with it. So if I take 11 pi over 4 and I subtract 2 pi, that would be 11 pi over 4 minus 8 pi over 4, to give them common denominators, would be 3 pi over 4. So what I'm really looking for is the cosine of 3 pi over 4. So if I find 3 pi over 4, the cosine is the x value. So that is negative root 2 over 2. So for the secant, I have to reciprocate that. So again, it's negative 2 over root 2. Rationalizing that, it's negative root 2. Okay, let's take a look at another one. We're asked to find the cotangent of 5 pi over 4. I'm sorry, 5 pi. So 5 pi is not on our unit circle, so we have to figure out what's coterminal with it. So we take 5 pi, we subtract 2 pi to get 3 pi. 3 pi is still not on our unit circle, so we take 3 pi, subtract 2 pi, it's pi. Okay, so in order to find cotangent, we have to find tangent first. So we're going to look for the tangent of pi, since 5 pi is coterminal with pi is coterminal with 5 pi, so it's right here. So what's the tangent? The tangent is the y over the x. It's 0 over negative 1. So now we have to reciprocate that for the cotangent. So it would be negative 1 over 0, which is undefined because you can't divide by 0. So now here's a couple of problems for you to try. Pause your video, try the problems out, and then when you restart the video, I'll show you the answers. So pause your video now. Okay, so to find the cosecant of 2 pi over 3, the first thing I must do is find the sine of 2 pi over 3, which is root 3 over 2. So then I have to reciprocate that to be 2 over root 3. Rationalizing it would be 2 root 3 over 3. To find the secant of 7 pi over 2, 7 pi over 2 is not on our unit circle, so I have to subtract 2 pi from it. If I subtract 2 pi from it, I get 3 pi over 2. So I locate to find the secant, I locate the cosine. The cosine of 3 pi over 2 is 0. I try to reciprocate 0, and I'm unable to do that. So therefore, it is undefined. Okay, last example. Find the 6 trig functions of negative 13 pi over 6. So the first thing we realize is negative 13 pi over 6 is not on our unit circle. So since it's negative, I'm going to start adding to pi. So this would be negative 13 pi over 6 plus 12 pi over 6 would be negative pi over 6. Now you could look at negative pi over 6 as 11 pi over 6, because those are coterminal, or you could add 2 pi again and you get 11 pi over 6. So finding the 6 trig functions, it means I need to find the sine of negative 13 pi over 6, the cosine of negative 13 pi over 6, and the tangent of negative 13 pi over 6. So we'll find those first, and then the other 3 are just the reciprocals. So the sine of 13 pi over 6 would be the same as the sine of 11 pi over 6, which is negative 1/2. The cosine of negative 13 pi over 6 would be the same as the cosine of 11 pi over 6, which is root 3 over 2. And the tangent would be the sine over the cosine, or the y over the x. So it would be negative 1/2 over root 3 over 2. And then when you go ahead and pretty that up, you get negative root 3 over 3. So let me just put that answer here. Negative root 3 over 3. So now to find the other 3, the cosecant of negative 13 pi over 6 is just the reciprocal of the sine, so it's negative 2. The secant of negative 13 pi over 6, that's getting really messy, is the reciprocal of the cosine. So when you rationalize that, you get get 2 root 3 over 3. And then the cotangent of negative 13 pi over 6 is the reciprocal of the tangent. When you reciprocate it and rationalize it, you get negative root 3. Okay, guys, that is section 6.2. Good luck with that. If you have any questions, post your questions to the discussions on Canvas.